What's up, Chance Game Louis with this? Okay, welcome back to another video where we're talking about the Vampire Lestat. Listen, I have a question for you. Was really the Vampire Lestat just like literally part 2 of Interview with the Vampire? Because I'm starting to have some questions and I'm starting to see some parallels, and I'm starting to see through episode 7 of the Vampire Lestat, this show was always about Louis and Lestat. No matter if we're talking about Gabriella, Armand, Claudia, Regina, Madeline, Santiago, no matter who we were talking about in this show revolved around Louis and Lestat, the perfect vampire love story. So I have been seeing a lot of people saying that they don't appreciate the Vampire Lestat season 3, but I need people to understand that we literally got 2 seasons of understanding who Louis was, literally the Interview with Lestat, okay? With Lestat in his own way creating the failures, okay? Literally, Louis had the first 2 seasons for us to understand, how Claudia came about, how Lestat came about, how the trial came about, and what Louis' life was like during the centuries of him being a vampire, even him getting along with Armand, doing the Interview with the Vampire with Daniel. But in season 3, the Vampire Lestat, we finally get to see the other perspective of how these 2 individuals came about and ended up, finding their way back to each other. So when Armand and Daniel finally beheaded Louis and Lestat, it kind of like put us back into separating the seasons again to me. Like it separated Interview with the Vampire and the Vampire Lestat. And they kind of showed us, like when Armand and Louis went off, that kind of just brought it back to the Interview with the Vampire. And when Daniel and Lestat went off, that brought it back to the Vampire Lestat. Like that's how I differentiated them. And I have another question for you. So now that we know that we've seen both perspectives from Louis and Lestat, like what are your own like assumptions and things about the information that we received so far, the things that we saw so far from, season 1 through 3? And do you finally understand or agree with some of the choices that Lestat and Louis made, throughout this journey? And what are some of the adaptations that were different from the book than from the TV show? Because, I named a couple throughout my videos. Do you think that the adaptation stayed as close as it could to the book? Because I think that it did. So something that I really want to talk about in this episode 7, I don't want to really call it a recap or review, but in episode 7, it just let me know now that between the Interview with the Vampire and the Vampire Lestat, that all monsters aren't created equally. We found out that Magnus basically lived a pitiful life, and he ended up begging his, maker for the gift, and that his maker didn't want to give him the gift, so he ended up killing his maker and drinking the blood of his maker to be able to get the gift at a very old age. We know Akasha's assassination caused a male to fuse with her body and made her the first vampire ever. Armand was a sex slave. Gabrielle was on her dying bed, and Lestat turned her. And I'm going according to the show, according to how the show is telling that these characters got turned. Louis had survivor's guilt because of his brother, suicide. He wanted to be turned because he didn't have nothing else left. He felt like his mama didn't like him. He was a pimp. He had so much baggage going on that he begged Lestat to change him. Claudia basically ran into one of Lestat's establishments, and basically she was dying, and Louis basically begged Lestat to bring her back to life because he felt guilty. And basically, Lestat wanted to keep Louis around, and that was the only way. Claudia was the only way to keep Louis around, or keep Louis tethered to Lestat. And we know Lestat was preyed upon by the vampire Magnus and turned because he was the infamous wolf killer. None of these entities are evil or innocent, okay? Look, listen. None of them became monsters the same way. Madness creates monsters. Akasha rules through domination. Armand manipulates. Louis withdraws. Gabrielle abandons. Lestat loves too much, sometimes selfishly. And that's why I keep saying all of the vampires or monsters are not created equally. Anne Rice never writes good vampires. She writes broken people who become immortal. The AMC adaptation expands this by letting us experience multiple perspectives instead of locking us inside one narrator's memories. So another thing that I really want to point out in episode 7 of the Vampire Lestat is the long table. I feel like when I was watching the aftermath, I just say that I forgot what they call it when it's after the show or after dark or whatever, but the book doesn't present this exact symbolic gathering in the same cinematic way. AMC uses the long table almost like a council of memory, guilt, legacy, influence surrounding Lestat. Everyone seated at this table shaped him. Mentors, lovers, victims, children, enemies, they're all pieces of the man sitting at the head. The visual storytelling is something television can do differently than the book. And I also thought this was so interesting because we were seeing characters that we haven't seen in a long time, like Antoinette. I don't even think we've seen Antoinette like at all in the whole season 3 except episode 7. And we almost forgot how pivotal Antoinette was in the relationship of Louis and Lestat. Because in an interview with that vampire, Antoinette showed up so many times, and Louis was so jealous of Antoinette during their relationship. Even though Louis had some type of obsession and strange addiction, to Claudia, and Claudia was Louis' Antoinette. So sitting at this table was Antoinette, Nicholas de la Font, Gabriella for the sake of the TV show, and Magnus, and Louis. And what's crazy is Louis was the one that was really ripping the jokes the whole time. Well, I won't say he was ripping the jokes the whole time. Like Magnus was giving like philosophical, like deep little reads or whatever. But between Gabriella and, because Nicholas was getting his jabs in there too, and Antoinette, I think Antoinette said like one couple things or whatnot, but Lestat responded was like, that's why you cut your finger off or something in that nature. But as far as in like reading, like Louis was reading the whole time. Gabriella, before Gabriella got into the hot seat, she was reading too. But the crazy thing is at this long table or round table thing that Lestat had going on with, his children, not children, but victims, children, lovers, mentors, and enemies. It's crazy that Gabriella, the vampire Sophia to Lestat, the vampire Sophia to Louis, it's crazy that they were having such a conversation and getting somewhat along, at this table when they really couldn't stand each other in real life. Because the first time that Louis met Lestat's mother, they was like reading each other down. They was nice, nasty. Gabriella was like, don't come to my son's concert, and not because, you're gonna hurt Lestat, but Lestat don't want you to be hurt by the other vampires and all these other people, and I don't want to hurt you either. And I was like, oh, now that's how you clear, girl. But yeah, so that was very something much to pay attention to. I think this story has always been about Louis and Lestat. And, everyone else, Claudia, Armand, Gabrielle, Nicholas, Antoinette, Daniel, Akasha, I think they're like important characters emotionally to explain the development of Lestat. But I think the entire trilogy has always been about these two trying and repeatedly failing to love each other. And that's why in this episode, I believe they said they could try again, like after they had learned everything about Louis' past with Armand and Claudia and Lestat with Antoinette and his band and just so much the coven. It's just crazy. Like we're finally seeing Louis and Lestat like finally get back together again, after season 1 being Louis' version, season 3 being Lestat's version, and now episode 7 bringing those two versions together. So all in all, I think episode 7 like encompasses Louis and Lestat's life together as broken tragedy. How do you say like a beautiful tragic romance? So I think I really enjoyed this romantic tragedy, okay? I think that it did some service for Interview with the Vampire fans, book readers, and Rice book readers, new viewers. Everyone got something. I feel like AMC is finally saying, like, you get to see both sides, Louis and Lestat. Now pick which one you think is better, or if you think that they are made for each other. No pun intended. Since Lestat is Louis' maker. But I do have some questions left for you. Do you think that Louis and Lestat finally understand each other? Who was the real monster out of both of them? Can two people be right at the same time? Or were they both wrong? Was this really the ending or just the end of their origin story? Now, I think it's just the end of their origin story. So now that we come to the understanding that season 1 through 3 was just the perspective or origin story of Lestat, the Vampire Lestat and the Vampire Louis, I have like a couple more discussions that I really want to have about, other characters and how I felt like they got left off of Bad and Bougie. And what I think what could happen in the future of this show. Are we going to get a part 2 or a season 4? Or, what are we going to do? Because it's rumored that season 4 is going to be about the Queen of the Damned, okay? So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you lock in. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video with your mom, dad, your uncle, your auntie. Make sure you stay tuned. Tap the notification bell so you can be notified every time that I post a video. Late night pop culture moment video is coming to you soon. Stay tuned. And stay tuned for the rest of these videos. Remember, if nobody told you all year, all month, all week, all day, I love you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.